Where does all my money go? I don't know if I can ever retire. I can't wait for my tax refund. Sound familiar? In this video, I'll give you 5 ways to tell you could benefit from learning more about money. Hi, I've studied personal finance for 20 years. On this channel, I share concepts to help you live a successful financial life. If this video describes you, have no fear because you are my target audience. Subscribe and stick around and I'll help you get your money under control. Before we start, I am not a financial advisor and I share financial concepts, not financial advice. All views are my own and not my employer's. Let's get to it. Sign number 1. You don't know your money picture. If you were to take a photo of your money situation right now so you could preserve it and look back at it in the future, what would it look like? What would appear in the photo? The first thing that should be there is combined household take-home pay. I've been watching a lot of Ramit's I Will Teach You to Be Rich channel and Caleb Hammer's financial audit, and it's astounding how many people don't know how much they bring home every paycheck and how much people make per year, especially if they're in gig work or something similar where the amount is not static every time you get a paycheck. Second thing you should know is subscriptions and memberships. These are easy to lose track of, so you should be able to make a list of the things that you have and how much they cost. These are things like streaming services, gym memberships, Costco, Walmart Plus, and Amazon Prime. The next thing is fixed costs. So you've got things like rent or mortgage, you've got car payments, utilities, insurance, student loans, things that generally are pretty much the same cost every month. The next thing is paycheck deductions. This includes investments like 401k that gets pulled out of your paycheck without you seeing it. It includes benefits, so things like health insurance, dental, vision, life. You want to know what things are coming out of your paycheck and how much they are. Next thing is a good example of how good of a grip you have on your money situation. It's holiday spending. So if you look at how much you spent, do you even know how much it was? Do you know how much you spent on your kids? Do you know how much you spent on food? Do you know how much you spent on various entertaining and travel, gas, things like that? A good way to keep track of these things is through something called a net worth statement. This is a high-level view of where you stand financially, and it's not really exactly the same thing as expense tracking, but it gives you a view overall of where your money situation is. It tells you how much you have and how much you owe. And overall, it gives you a number of what you're worth. It's something that you can use to track year over year how your financial situation is. Sign number 2, you celebrate a big tax refund. You shouldn't be celebrating a big tax refund because it's essentially like lending your money to the government for a long time for free without getting any interest for it. For a lot of people, it works out well because it's forced savings. It means that because you don't have access to that money, you can't spend it. And so you get it all back in a big chunk. But if you can be disciplined about it, there are better ways to do this. Another channel I watch is called Car Questions Answered. And he runs a car dealership. And he talks about how he receives a lot of people, a lot of customers around tax time who are looking to buy cars because it's when they have the most money they have all year long, because it's forced savings. It's a way for them to make sure that they save money and accumulate it because they get it all in one lump sum. It's not something that they were able to spend because the government was hanging on to it. But there are better ways to do this. If you want to do things like this and have money at the end of the year, you're giving the government interest that you could be accumulating instead. And you always have a chance to fix this all year long because you have a form called the W-4 that determines how much your employer holds for you in taxes. And it's called withholding. And the W-4 can be submitted at any time. It can be modified and resubmitted all throughout the year. So the better way to do it is to figure out how much of a refund you're normally getting and what may have changed over the past year or this upcoming year, and then take that number and figure out how much you can reduce your withholding so that it's closer to the number that you're actually going to owe at the end of the year, so that you end up with a very little refund or no refund. But you don't want to end up under withholding either, so you want to make sure that it's as close as possible. But if you can take the amount of money that you would have gotten in your refund and stick it in a savings account that has interest that you get, it's much better, because that way you don't have to worry about the government holding on to your money, and you can see the interest that you gain by holding it in an interest-bearing account yourself. You can even do things like splitting your direct deposit and having it go directly into your high yield savings account instead of going into your checking account or having the government hold on to it, so that it's almost like forced savings, but you're doing it yourself. Sign number 3, you carry a credit card balance. So credit cards are one of those financial tools that some people are firmly against. Other people are okay with it as long as you use it a certain way, like if you pay off monthly. But yeah, they are definitely dangerous. So one thing I've seen on social media a lot lately is this idea that if you carry a credit card balance, it helps build your credit. I have great credit. I did not use this tactic of carrying a credit card balance. I'm not exactly sure where this came from or if it's true or not, but you don't have to do it. It's definitely not required for building credit. And the amount that you're paying in fees, you have to question whether or not you actually need to build your credit and how much it's worth to you to build your credit faster. I don't personally think that you really need to do this to carry over a credit card balance in order to build your credit or to build your credit faster. It doesn't really make sense to me unless you are in dire straits because you need to buy a house really quickly or something, and so you got to pump up your credit score immediately or you're going to get a higher rate or something. But it's really hard to calculate the return on that. So generally speaking, I think it's better to pay off every month. So Caleb Hammer has a saying that you're not a credit card person. And that really just means that you can't handle keeping track of the payments that you owe and paying them off on time every month, at the end of the month every month. So really the only way you should use credit cards is if they get paid off at the end of the month. That way you can take advantage of the rewards and you don't have to pay anything for those. If you're paying for your rewards, they're not really rewards. They're just cash that you can't use at most places. You have a restricted amount of options that you can spend it on. And one of the big philosophy issues with using credit cards is that people buy stuff that they can't pay off at the end of the month, and they know they can't pay it off. But really, that just means that you can't afford it. You say you can afford it because you have the debt that you can go into, but that's not really affording something. That's just borrowing to be able to buy it. All right, sign number 4. You have no financial goals. This one's a big one. I think a lot of people are intimidated by money, so they don't end up wanting to go into these kinds of details. But you need to have a plan. You need to have things that you want to accomplish. One of the things that people talk about right now is retirement and whether or not they're ever going to be able to retire. And if you don't know your retirement number, how much you're going to need in retirement, it's hard to plan. And right now, for especially young people, you got to get started. It's a huge factor to be able to have the time for compound interest to work, because that's how you accomplish the big goals. You can't just save up the money to have, I've seen stats about how younger generations expect that they'll need $3.5 million for retirement. And in order to accomplish big goals like that, you can't just save it all and put it all away from the amount that you earn yourself. You've got to have investments to help build that number up. So another thing that you should have for financial goals is your annual net worth calculation, so that a net worth calculation or net worth goal is a great thing to gauge where you are and where you want to be. And when you're first starting out on your journey, when you are having a really hard time keeping track of your finances, you can start with small goals. There are lots of goals that you can do that will be extremely impactful. So some ideas are like reducing debt by a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage, or building your emergency fund by some date. It could be getting your 401k match and making all the other numbers work somehow. All right. Sign number 5, last one. You consume more than you invest. So this goes to all of the consumer purchases that you make, things that are generally what's called discretionary, which means they're not needs. They're things that you buy sometimes on a whim, sometimes they are things that are planned out well ahead of time, but there are things that you don't necessarily need. There are things that you could live without. And especially when you're starting out, it's not like you can just save and invest, 25% of your income, like a lot of the, well, 20 or 25%. I guess Dave Ramsey recommends 15 or 20. And I know the Money Guy show recommends 25, but it's not something that you can just start out at those kinds of levels. It's definitely going to be a change in lifestyle to cut these things out. But it's one of the most important things that you can do to be able to get to the point where you are investing more than you're consuming. We are in a consumer culture where corporations are out to get you. They have all these tracking data on you, and they have really good views into what will make you buy things. But you got to learn to put those things aside to be able to envision the future that you want and to invest your money instead of spending it. There are definitely things that you'll want to do that you don't want to miss out on, but I think most people should be able to invest more than they consume from this discretionary list. I believe that nearly everyone can do money. You just have to learn and practice, and I want to help. I will be releasing multiple videos a week and running live streams with Q&A. Also, I'll be building my channel and business in public, including monthly subscriber and view count updates, and hopefully revenue numbers later this year. So if you're interested in following along on this journey, please subscribe so you can get notifications when I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.